Welcome to the latest episode of First Impressions, where I try out brand new video games so you can see whether you think you'll like them before you spend your hard-earned money on them. Now today we're looking at a big one. This is a huge release and thankfully it is launching without any controversy whatsoever. It's Assassin's Creed Shadows. I've been super excited about this since I saw the trailers for its release, and I'm very, very grateful to have been sent a key over by Ubisoft and to be creating content as a Ubisoft partner. Saying that, I am going to give you a super honest review, but you can treat this as an ad if you want to, because obviously I have a partnership with Ubisoft. Generally what happens is I play the game for a little bit, usually half an hour, sometimes longer, and at the end of that I will give you my breakdown of things I liked, things I didn't like, and whether I recommend you buy the game. As I said, I am a Ubisoft partner. Feel free to treat this as an ad. That is absolutely fine. You should do that. But for now, let's just enjoy some gameplay of a brand new game that should be out within the day. Here we go. Okay, so the first couple of things here, you've got multiple difficulty modes: story, forgiving, normal, and expert. You can turn on guided exploration. Canon mode is an interesting one. It ensures that you can only make the choices that are part of the canon of the story. So there might be multiple different options, multiple different endings, potentially different outcomes depending on what your choices are throughout the game. Canon mode will remove those. And then immersive mode, which automatically sets and locks the voiceover language to Japanese and blends Japanese and Portuguese dialogue for an immersive audio experience. We're going to jump in with everything on default. Let's go.
Memories come to us in fragments. You relive a jigsaw of experiences and emotions. Some memories are soothing and familiar.
I played this yesterday live on stream. And I'm replaying it again today.
And then there are the ones
and the guide thing really confused me.
To show you. In these memories,
I don't.
Imperfections.
I was asking the question, is this normal
and biology?
for Assassin's Creed to have
you may not
the guide,
what you're seeing at first,
like using this memory style thing? Is this what it is? And they said yeah, so I didn't really understand it, but hey ho. We move. Japan, March 8th, 1951, Kyoto.
As it must for all who journey to this lands.
It looks incredibly beautiful.
A complex and precarious place. At war with itself for centuries.
Like it's visually stunning. Start.
From that chaos and bloodshed, my opportunity surfaced.
He comes. Oda Nobunaga.
Same place, from the other perspective.
We need a plan. Stewart, what do we do?
We ride to Aikuni Shrine. Now.
Alright, listen. Let me talk a little bit about this game. There was clearly some reticence with people wanting to buy into this game as a concept. Now, I don't know the history of Assassin's Creed and what issues people have with what games and what they think Ubisoft got wrong. And I'll start out again by pointing out that I was gifted this game and I'm a Ubisoft partner and often create content around Ubisoft. So there's a couple of issues I have here. This is the first Assassin's Creed game I've played. I've got no nostalgia associated with it. That's an issue, I'm sure, for some people because they're going to look at me and say, well, you don't know anything about Assassin's Creed. Who are you to judge whether this is a good game by Assassin's Creed standards? Fair enough. You're also going to say you're a Ubisoft partner, and although I haven't been paid to do any kind of review, there's always the note that, you want to give a game a good review or good feedback in order to get future work with that company. That could also be deemed as true. I think the reality is for most content creators, if they really don't like something, they probably don't produce content around it. They don't play it. So I have to treat this game as a game. I can't treat it as a game within a franchise because I've not played the rest of the franchise. I can't treat it as a game where I'm a huge fan of it because I've never played it before. And I also have to be really fair about the quality of the game and the gameplay because I want to be honest with you guys and make sure you get the most from it. Now, I've played through the first hour and a half, 2 hours of the game twice now. And what I will say for the beginning of the game is all about story building. The first thing I don't get and I don't understand is the guide. I don't understand that at all, really. I don't understand what purpose the guide fills within the game. And that might just be my naivety with Assassin's Creed, because I did ask when I was streaming this live for the first time, I did ask what is the guide all about? Is that normal for an Assassin's Creed game? And they said yes. But I don't really understand what the purpose of that is. It seems to hint that these are kind of memories that we're experiencing through some kind of thing. But I don't really know what the purpose of that is. Is that just so it allows them to follow assassins through different time periods or something? Is that a kind of story device in order to experience different things? For me, I'd be quite happy to just get into the game. I didn't need all the guide stuff. I didn't need all the memory stuff. I didn't need all the kind of ultra modern AI style stuff overlaying this game that's set in feudal Japan. Correct me if I'm wrong there. Maybe the guide serves a bigger purpose further down the line. Correct me, feel free to drop down in the comments the purpose of the guide and the origin of the guide. I haven't looked into that. The other thing I'll say is within the first hour and a half, 2 hours, it is very much on rails, story driven, which I'll be honest with you about is absolutely my bag. That is the kind of game I love. Now, I feel like this might open up a little bit over time and present us with more opportunities to do a variety of things that you can't do within the first section of the game. But in terms of it being a world building and mechanics tutorial, I think it did a great job. I think it did a great job of letting me know what the controls were, introducing me to the two different characters, Yasuke and Naoe, and you instantly get a feel for what the difference between those two characters are. Yasuke feels like a tank. It feels like every shot that you're putting in on someone, every swipe of the sword is like a cannon blow to the enemy. He is a bit more cumbersome, a bit slower, but doesn't feel like slow gameplay. It feels like a big muscular guy swinging a sword around. It could quite easily be any other heavy, chunky item, but he's slow but powerful and can burst through doors, can whatever. And he looks absolutely the part of a samurai. With the gear he's got on, with the sitting on the horse with the army backing him up, he just looks like a monstrous figure in this environment. Naoe, on the other hand, feels much lighter. She's very quick, she's very nimble, but does very minimal damage when she's fighting. You kind of have to get in and get out, and I would guess that if you're in multiple assailant situations that you're going to struggle a little bit. So the two characters are set up well, and you instantly get a feel for what the difference is between those two characters. Quite how the story is going to interweave, I don't know, because that's what it feels like, is that these two things are interweaving. You experience the first part of the game, the attack on Iga, from two different perspectives, essentially, from Yasuke's perspective, from Naoe's perspective, and now they've kind of gone off in their own direction. What I will say is that in this beginning section, it feels like the focus is very much on Naoe, and Yasuke gets a little snippet. Talking of Yasuke, they kind of did what I predicted. Well, I talked about this in a live stream when people were complaining about having a black character, having a female character in the game. That we didn't yet know how people were going to be reacting to Yasuke in the game. And in that very first section, as he's walking down the street, and you hear people commenting on his skin color, you hear how they refer to him as a character. and it's very clear that they're not trying to, he's not being treated in the same way that a Japanese samurai would be treated. He may be respected, he may be feared, he may be lots of things throughout this game, but it seems to me that his station, certainly at the very beginning, is clear. He's referred to as a slave. There's lots of commentary made about his skin color. There's lots of commentary made about who he is and what he is, and how he came to be there. There's not a huge amount of his story been told yet within the first couple of hours. Really, it's a big part of, it focuses more on Naoe. When these two intertwine and you start being able to swap between the two, I think it'll become a really interesting dynamic. Movement mechanics and stuff are all great. The parkour, the climbing. I've not done any of that before, but it all looks and feels fairly intuitive. Certainly with Naoe and how she moves around. I think we'll see less of the parkour and the climbing stuff from Yasuke, to be honest with you. That's my gut instinct. In terms of how this game looks, someone said to me, oh, is it a Tsushima rip-off? Is it a Tsushima remake? Is it got that kind of Ghost of Tsushima feel to it? And it absolutely doesn't. First of all, I think they're kind of set in two different periods of Japanese history. One being the Mongol invasion, and this period being a kind of a feudal Japan leading into the shogunate period, where the kind of the control of Japan was consolidated a little bit more. So there may be the similarities are kind of the Japanese setting, but not so much the time period and what you'd expect to see here. But it doesn't feel like a Tsushima game at all in terms of the vibe. What I will say though about this game is that graphically the environments are some of the best I've seen. They are as good as any other AAA being released at this time. Environmental graphics look phenomenal. There's butterflies, there's dragonflies, there's leaves falling, there's wind blowing. It feels dynamic, it feels alive, it looks beautiful. I mean, Japan is such a wonderful location to have these games set in, because some of these more rural locations just look stunning. This is, I think, why so many people are excited by games like Ghost of Tsushima, Ghost of Yutei, those kind of things, because the scenery is so stunning. And there are elements in this first section that really capture that. The graphics in general are just phenomenal. Really, really good. I feel like we've seen a little bit of a leap with some games, recently. Things like Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, this game, Indiana Jones. There's been some really beautiful games released recently. And, I think graphically, this is... compare it to other Ubisoft games, for example, to Outlaws. I think this is graphically leagues ahead of Outlaws. I know there was a lot of issues for people with Outlaws. I personally enjoyed that game, but I think this is a big step up environmentally. It looks amazing. Character graphics as well just look flawless on some of these scenes. Some of these characters, I'm looking at it and I'm going, wow. Certainly within the cutscenes and the cinematics, it just looks absolutely flawless. Lighting on the characters, specifically around the eyes, the close-ups, these cinematic shots, and the lighting they've chosen for these shots looks absolutely wonderful. And there's some story cinematic decisions that have been made here. There's some they feel like a director of photography's had their hands on these. The scene where Naoe is lying down in the temple and the kind of days are passing by and you see her cycle through the days, like a time lapse of her lying down there, and it's just beautiful. You see the kind of sun, the moon lighting coming through the kind of barred windows and stuff, and it just looks gorgeous. The start of this to me feels like 2 or 3 episodes. The first 2 hours feels like 2 or 3 episodes, probably 2 episodes, of a really epic, HBO style TV series. It's that cinematic. There's lots of story and there's so much emotion built into this very first part. Again, the focus has really been on Naoe, I think, for the start, but there's even, you can see turmoil with Yasuke when he's referred to as a slave, and you can see that he's kind of struggling with that label that's been put on him, and struggling with the position that he finds himself in. So I think environmental graphics, character graphics in general on this are absolutely stunning. Really, really stunning. It's very hard at this point to say what review you would give this game in terms of a, out of 10 marking. There are people that have had this game longer that I'm sure will give solid reviews. But this definitely feels on par with any other AAA that's been released in the past 6 to 12 months. You can see this feels like a step up from the Ubisoft team. It feels like there's been recognition about stuff in the past in terms of the quality of games being released. And again, I don't think Star Wars Outlaws was a perfect game by any stretch of the imagination, but I thought it was a good game. It was a good, solid kind of 6-7 out of 10 game. There were some issues with it. Everyone compares these things to Red Dead Redemption 2 when you get an open world game, and that's a really difficult place to start because that is, an outlier in terms of game production, and it's a game that is probably 10-15 years in the making. It wasn't that at all, and graphically, even compared to this, it is lacking in some areas. But this feels like a real win for Ubisoft, and feels like a game that people are really going to love. It feels... I've heard people who have played Assassin's Creed say that it feels like a return to form for Assassin's Creed. That's not a comment I can make because I've never played any other Assassin's Creed game. What I can say is I'm not unhappy that this is the first Assassin's Creed game that I've played. I'm happy for this to be my entry into the franchise, and I'm sure I'll go back and play the other games as and when I choose to. But this is a wonderful game so far. It really is good. I've enjoyed the story elements. I enjoyed the fighting mechanics. Some of those kind of finisher moves that Naoe and Yasuke have got are pretty brutal. And there's been emotion built in, and there's been shock built in, and there's been things that make me want to drive more into the game and see where this is going. The big turning point, I think, will be the combination of Yasuke and Naoe, and how those two work together, and how they come to be... what would the word be? Maybe frenemies? I don't know what they're going to be, but presumably they are going to cross paths. Unless the game is you working against each other, I don't know. I'm not that far in yet. What happens? How does that come to be? Because at the moment it feels like they're on other sides. Sound on this game, soundscaping is wonderful. The leaves, the environments, birds, the animals, all of that walking around. There have been some random deer not really reacting to me running by them and stuff, which is a little bit odd. But then there's been other animals that have reacted. Enemies seem to be very reactive to you, both in terms of seeing you from a stealth perspective and also reacting to how you fight, which is great. It's nice that there's going to be some difficulty there with enemies and not just being able to blast through people. And you can pet cats in it, which is always an amazing element of any game, is being able to interact with the animals, because that's a lot of fun. Accessibility wise, I'm going to point you over, and I'll put a link below. I'm going to point you over to Lil Motak, who does a lot of accessibility reviews. I know that's super important to a lot of gamers, so I'm not really in a position to be able to speak around accessibility. Listen, for me, this is an expensive game, but it certainly shows that sometimes you get what you pay for, and this is well worth it, I think. However, if it was me, what I would be doing is I'd be getting Ubisoft Plus for a month and completing the game and moving on. I'm not sure 100% what the time to complete on this is, but even if you pay for 2 months worth of Ubisoft Plus, it's probably going to be cheaper to do that than to buy the game outright. That would be my personal preference of how I would do it. Any opportunity for me to pay less for something is a good thing, and I'm sure there's a bunch of other benefits that you get from Ubisoft Plus. I've got no referral or affiliate link to Ubisoft Plus. I'm just saying, I think it's about 14 quid a month, and you get access to this game from day one. So that would be my suggestion. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I hope you enjoyed the game. I've really enjoyed it so far. I'm excited to play it even more. So I will see you guys on the next video. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. I'd love to have you as part of the community.